Hi everyone, thanks for being with me today on the Toughen Show. We're going to talk about a subject which I've been thinking about for some time, and that is Albo tough enough? Here on my show, I talk about facts, and I also offer political opinions, thought out, considered political opinions, which I believe matter to most people. A lot of people may disagree, and that's fine. We have a comment section in which you can share your disagreements, or at least you can have a conversation. So please remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, because it costs you nothing to do so, and I really do appreciate it. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about, primarily actually, on this podcast, about Albanese. Now, I think Albanese is a decent human being. He has appropriate, I think, principles and understandings and values that many of us would appreciate and share. But the one thing that he doesn't have right at this moment is the toughness to be able to confront and articulate what's happening in Australia in what I would consider a meaningful and more appropriate manner. He won this election, won the last election, simply because he had a shitty opposition. Dutton shot himself in the foot over and over again, and the Liberal Party looked weak and ineffectual. And as a result of all of that, he was able to sweep into power with a record majority. Now, what that has meant for Albanese and the government is that they can just coast along, that they will have definitely probably another term. They may lose some seats, but they won't lose enough to lose power at the next election, but they can just coast along. And even though there are some significant changes that the government's making, I don't believe that their rhetoric is sufficient to be able to convince the rest of the public that they are worthy of a third term, or it'll probably be a fourth term by the time they do it. They lose if they lose power again. But there is an opportunity that you can't sit back and sit on your hands and just expect to be able to coast simply because you've won such a large majority. It will be whittled away and you will suffer the consequences. But because it presents as an opportunity to do things differently. You know, it is an opportunity to deal with negative gearing, make sure that more houses are available, that those houses aren't owned by investors, that these people are taxed appropriately so that they can give up those bloody houses and give them to those people that do deserve them, such as new homeowners, young people in particular. There's a lot more that could be done around climate change and heading towards net zero. There's things that could be done around our education system so that education is free. We could start taxing mineral companies more than what we do, or they should be paying more tax than what they do, in some cases zero. We should be focusing on gas supplies in Australia. We should be doing what we can to make sure that renewables are moving at a faster rate. There's many things. I can go on and on and on. The list is infinite as to what we could do. But the most important thing for me at the moment is the rhetoric. We could start using rhetoric which talks about things that are happening in Australia, particularly in relation to immigration. And we had an example of that this weekend, where Albanese had an opportunity to be able to outline the way we view, or Australians view generally, the immigration policy in Australia. One of the criticisms of the Labor Party is that they've lacked the ability to be able to articulate appropriately what the immigration policy is here in this country. And there was some criticism of this yesterday, and I couldn't agree more, that there is much more that could be done in order to inform people exactly how our immigration policy works, who comes into this country, why they come into this country, how they get into this country, what hurdles they have to jump in order to get here. These are conversations that they should be having with the public so that the public is informed. So when you get a group of people, as we did over the weekend, who were arguing against immigration, I think one could argue that those people are simply uninformed. In fact, I would say that they are ignorant, and that no matter who they are, no matter how far right they come, Some of them are racist, no disputing that, but there's certainly a group of them that are simply ignorant. And when Albanese was asked this question on afternoon briefing the other day, he gave a response which was like Trump's response. There are good people on both sides. You can't, in the US, you cannot argue that those people that were shouting anti-Semitic slogans were good people. They weren't. End of story. Neither can you argue that those people who were carrying Australian flags and making statements that were anti-immigration type statements and which were slurs against immigrants, one also has to wonder whether they're good people. Because in my view, they're not. They are simply ignorant. Now, we could use other language, I guess, to describe them, but the language I would use is simply they are all ignorant. Absolutely ignorant. And the other point I wanted to make before I show you this little clip of what Albo says is I want to highlight the fact that if you're an immigrant in Australia, I wonder how you must be feeling right now. Many immigrants, I think, will be feeling that this is the country that they've adopted. These are more current immigrants, not those of us who have ancestors that came here years ago, because we're all immigrants. But how would you be feeling if you're Indian or Asian, or if you are from the Muslim faith? How would you be feeling right now? We have a lot of focus on how it must be if you're Jewish, given the anti-Semitism that's around, but here we have another layer. What is it like for you if you come from another country with a different faith and are not white? What would that be like for you? Because I think it must be terrible. Terrible. But I'm just going to play this clip of Albanese, and I want to think about it. It's very, very brief, because he does go into this long-winded explanation as to what happened on the weekend. I'm not going to play all of that, but this is PK's interview with him on afternoon briefing.
After the massive rallies this weekend and a big debate about what they mean, the Prime Minister is my guest this afternoon. Prime Minister, welcome.
Good afternoon, Patricia.
Do you think there were good people with legitimate concerns at these anti-immigration rallies this weekend?
Of course, there's always good people who will turn up to demonstrate their views about particular issues. But what we have here is neo-Nazis being given a platform. That's what we saw on the weekend, and the tone, of course, of much of the rallies was unfortunate is the best way that you could put it, but hateful in some of the extreme examples. And the idea that an open neo-Nazi was able to give a speech from the steps of the Victorian Parliament is something that isn't the Australian way.
Liberal frontbencher Jacinta Napigipa-Price said she wants to congratulate the marchers and that the vast majority were people who love this country. Is that how you saw it?
Well, I did see her comments, and they don't reflect what my view of the...
Right. And it's at that point that we should be saying, no, they don't love this country. If they had any greater sense as to what it means to be Australian, they simply would have said, they would have stayed away to start with, and they would have had a better understanding as to the importance immigration is to the betterment of Australia. They should have known that. And Albo should have come straight out and said, no, they're not necessarily good people that attended this rally. They are not. They're ignorant. They're ignorant, and some of them were extreme right, which Albo talked about. But that shouldn't have been the focus. The majority of the people were carrying Australian flags, suggesting that immigration was a bad thing, that immigrants should be cast out of this country, that we should limit the amount of immigrants that we allow in, which could be a reasonable argument if they had the data, because we are restricting immigrants. But Albo could have made a more aggressive stance around all of this, apart from the one that he did. He didn't. He sat on his hands. He just wanted to talk about the right wing. They're not the issue now. Everybody can dismiss them And there were lots of people within this rally who did dismiss the right wing. The question we should be asking is, why did so many people turn up to these rallies in the first place? And part of that problem is the lack of communication between the government and people in relation to why people do enter this country and who they are that enter this country and what it would cost for us not to have an immigration policy. And I did a post on this the other day. What does it cost if we choose not to have people immigrating to this country? And Albo missed out this opportunity. And this is the problem. The problem is that eventually someone needs to get tough, and there needs to be attack dogs attacking those people who do not understand what immigration means. And also to adopt, Albo has an opportunity with his government to adopt more aggressive and meaningful progressive issues in Australia. It is one of the rarest countries in the Western world that has that opportunity because of the number of seats that he currently holds. And he could be doubling down on all of that and making the country a far better place. But instead, they're treading water. And I think this is dangerous. And I think unless Albanese changes his attitude and becomes tougher, stop being Mr. Nice Guy. You know, I watch him in Parliament, and you know, he could be more attacking. You know, I get a lot of fun out of watching Chris Bowen, who's far more attacking and quite humorous actually. But yeah, and he could be, potentially he could be. He's been in politics for a long time. The opportunity will slip Labor by if they don't start to toughen up. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and let's have a conversation. Do you think that Albo should be tougher? Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.